There's a builder from California that came. We took a picture together. I'm not going to post it because I don't want my competitors to come this next year. You know what's interesting about that? I said, over the last, we're not at number 7, we've had at least 3 or 4 from Phoenix every time, who I directly compete with. And I'm essentially opening up how I run my business. You would rather compete against people from maybe a level playing field that understand how to run a business, how to charge appropriately, and value the work that we do. Now you can make yourself the differentiator through personality, through value propositions, pain points you solve. What you don't want to have happen is these guys still charging way less than they should be charging because they don't understand what things cost. And now you're fighting on price and value as opposed to just value.
All right, we're in Omaha, Contractor Coalition, day 1. This is number 7. It's pretty awesome. I mean, give me a quick take on from where it started to where we're at today. Looking back, I mean, how is it? This is like a business that has just exploded, really based on your generosity and Nick and Morgan's as well, in just trying to share what is important to you and how people have helped you. Now you're extending that to other people. What does it mean to you?
I think you take this a lot of directions. I would say, as you think about how this has evolved, like right now, this is probably our most attended seminar that we've had, our most attended, conference. And in between the break of the first session, I think the most amazing thing is, 6 people come up and they're like 1 nugget, 2 nuggets, 3 nuggets, right? So each of them had different things that stuck out to them that they're going to go implement. And that was the first session. You think how many we're going to be doing. And then the feedback's been from the day before, day 1, we're doing networking. So they're like, day 1, you're meeting all these incredible people from all over the country. And last night at the dinner, a lot of them are like, it's amazing. I go to these builders. What are struggles in your market? What are issues you're having with hiring? What are issues that you're having with company culture? What are issues with pricing? Like, I'm having this issue. How are you responding? And so they're already doing it. And that's the whole purpose. And for me, to see people come in, and Brad Robinson made a comment. He came up and he's like, you guys are so direct with certain things that I've known you for a long time. I've been on your podcast, I've been with you. I've never seen you in a teaching format before. And so to hear the confidence that you have as far as some of these topics that you're confident because you've experienced them, or maybe you failed learning, like most of us do. And so the point is we don't want all these builders to feel like we have, and to give them the head start. And one last point on that, which is really interesting. There's a builder from California that came. And he said, Brad, we took a picture together. I'm not going to post it because I don't want my competitors to come this next year. And I started laughing and I said, you know what's interesting about that? I said, over the last, we're not at number 7, we've had at least 3 or 4 from Phoenix every time, who I directly compete with. And I'm essentially opening up how I run my business. And I said, Devin, what's interesting about that is you would rather compete against people from maybe a level playing field that understand how to run their business, how to charge appropriately, and value the work that we do. Now you can make yourself the differentiator through personality, through value propositions, pain points you solve, social media. I mean, you can separate yourself, but what you don't want to have happen is these guys still charging way less than they should be charging because they don't understand what things cost. And now you're fighting on price and value as opposed to just value.
I think that's very well said. Morgan said something that's always stuck with me from the first time I met her 3 years ago, which is collaboration over competition. And it really takes people in our industry like yourself, like Brad, and well, you are Brad, Nick and Tyler and Morgan and everyone really, to just lead by example of just saying, hey, this is how I do it. And to your point about the value that each person, I think it's by seeing someone as successful and as good a marketing job as everyone here does, and having people come and see it, they are realizing that the real magic is being authentic, whoever they are. And I think really the entire hosting staff does such a great job of saying, because each branch and each business is so different. Tyler was just speaking how he really speaks to the sole operators, and that's really, he wants to stay true to his message. And I love the diversity. So regardless if someone is a small remodel or mid-size production homes, I mean, we've had every kind of builder here and remodeler join, and they all find certain value. And even somebody like yourself, now that you've entered kind of the 7th edition, what are you learning that you apply to your business. I think that's the one thing that's kind of unique, that as someone who's sort of teaching, you're still learning a ton.
Yeah, you're still learning a ton. It's interesting, as you mentioned the 7, I think that's where it's evolved, because in the beginning, we felt that there was a huge gap for like the remodel or the small one-man operation or one-woman operation. Hence, we bring in Tyler for that. We've had you involved now, Mark. All of us are so diverse in our market, in our strategy, and so it gives really unique perspective on how you can take bits and pieces of each company and apply it to you. As you think about me, internally, it's what's interesting about hosting a podcast, what's interesting about hosting this is whether that's your goal or not, inherently you're going to be around people that are very smart and care about their business. And I don't know everything in construction. I wish I did. It'd make life a lot easier. But the reality is that you're learning. Like, I'm still learning. It's, the road to success is always on in construction. And so point being is that specifically this morning in one session, one thing that I have a real weakness on is like email campaigns. And it came up in there that, look, people are downloading my brochure and I'm getting their email content, but I'm not utilizing that. So right in between the break, I'm emailing my team, hey, we need to start capturing all this. We had someone build our website. We have all this data. Let's start utilizing this now. So it's just a little element to the branding and marketing that we weren't even doing, even though we're strong in some other areas. And how, we use AI a lot, but again, there's topics that, happening right now about AI that I'm like, that's really smart. I haven't used it that way. I can apply it this way. And so point being is that we're always learning. And when you get around like-minded people that challenge each other, you and Morgan say this, your vibe attracts your tribe, and you just are around people that are highly driven, highly successful, and by immersion, by speaking with them, you have no help but to download, that information to yourself.
You and I were texting in between, and I think I commented to you, I'd heard it recently, that show me your 5 friends and I'll show you your future. Mm-hmm. And we've heard it since your kids, or I have, who you surround yourself with is super important. And Nick had kind of mentioned yesterday about, if you set a goal for what you want your company to be, like elevate your eye set, like elevate your goal to something bigger and further. I mean, that's where you go. Your thought process, your business will go what you set your eyes on. And the reason I bring it up in terms of, you mentioned about networking and being around people, just by being around people on a regular basis, you sometimes it's intimidating to think like, I have to add all these things to my business. But really, a lot of it ends up being organic. I remember being a first-time attendee in Nashville, they said, pick 1 or 2 things that you want to add. And of course, I listed 100 things, because every alpha A who runs a business thinks that it doesn't apply to them, but it applies to everyone. And then went back to business, and I had so much stuff to do, I didn't actually intentionally add anything. And after 6 months, I looked at my notes when I went to the second coalition. I had absorbed and had just done a lot of that stuff just by hearing it, seeing it, and engaging with, at that time, Nick and Morgan and yourself. And I think anyone that's thinking about coming to the Contractor Coalition, if there's so many value adds, you couldn't even really say one thing that it is, because there's so many. It's really what appeals to each person, and you see people coming back again and again. When you see people come again and again and again, how does that make you feel?
Oh, it's incredible, because it's a commitment. I mean, I think everything in life, there's a cost, right? That you're investing in yourself or your business. I mean, there's a cost to it, right? But more importantly, it's time too. Like, you're taking away from your family, from your business, you're remote. Like, it's a commitment. And so when you see people that are seeing the value in that investment, and I mean, we have some people here that have attended their 3rd, 4th, 5th time. And it's incredible, because it's also just a staple of what we're doing, that you're seeing that even, because we evolve too in every conference. Like, we're adding content, we're changing it, we're seeing what our attendees are looking for, and again, fortunately, because we have enough people in the industry that are working through this, we have, an ability to pivot and move around. And the point being is that to see that attendees can come and get more out of it. And to your point, Mark, so many of us are networking with other people, and just by osmosis, right? You're just applying things you don't even know. Even with that said, you can go the second time and be like, we probably talked about the same thing and I totally missed it, because my business just wasn't at a level where that made sense to me. That statement didn't make sense. That business practice didn't make sense. But now my company's evolved and it does make sense and applies to me. So now I need to focus on this as well.
I can, see, I asked Joe Brown is back from Style and Structure, and he had a similar experience to me. We often say that the first time there's so much information, it's like drinking through a fire hose, and there's just so much. And he said, I'm coming back now to be a little bit more focused, and I've implemented some of the things that I heard the first time, and now it's just making a lot more sense. And it's like the building blocks. The more you practice it, the more it makes sense. To your point, I can just speak as an attendee, is like, man, the first couple times I'm like, some of the stuff was way over my head. And then now it's like, oh man, I've heard this. Sometimes we have to be told 3-4 times, or in my case, 27 times before, it really sinks in. But I think it is that repetition and that practice, and having ultimately everyone in the room is a cheerleader for each other, meeting all these builders all over the country. How often do you get, I know you get thank you notes after the fact. What are some of the things that people say after they've come to an event when they reach out to you?
Yeah, there's a lot. And it's, before I answer, that's interesting because you made a point, Mark. So much is about confidence. And so as you hear this stuff over and over, it makes you confident, and it allows you to go back and apply things. And that confidence now turns into the feedback, in the sense that, there's a builder specifically that called me and said, Brad, my most expensive home or remodel I had ever done was $300,000. I'm now doing a home that's $900,000. It's the triple what I've ever done, but I'm prepared for it. I'm ready for it. I know my value. I know how to charge for it. I know how to make this successful, from systems and operation, and also how to charge the client, so that I know I'm in a good position to perform. And to hear that, it's like, and to hear people come back, we had another attendee come in and say, it was a huge investment and we were $500,000 in debt. And it was a problem. And we are way past that. We're in the black, we're not in the red anymore, and we're successful. Like we got out of that hole in just 18 months. And yeah, there's a lot of circumstances that play into that, but there's also a lot that they had applied that's immediately started changing how they started pricing their jobs. And so not just the financial success, but I will say outside that, what I really enjoy, because I'm a people person. I love relationships, I love people. Like, that's why I do what I do. But at the end of the day, when you see everyone come and they talk about the friendships they made. And I think this last year in Vegas, when we had, 250 people attend, and not only, these weren't just like random people that wanted to sign a network. Legitimately, there were friends there who had met each other through this summit and through social media and through all these different connection points we've had. And to see so many attendees now have brand deals and work with brands and take their companies to the next level, whether it's, podcasts, or whether it's different speaking engagements, or sit on panels in Vegas at the Builder Show. Just to see, you think like a parent, you just see your kids like just taking on being successful, like it's like the best ever.
Especially in day one, it's about profitability. I remember going back 3 years, I called Morgan, because I was considering the Contractor Coalition. I didn't know anybody. Didn't know you, didn't know Brad, didn't know Norgan. You're Brad again. So used to speaking about the third person. At that point, I called Morgan. I didn't know who you were. I didn't know Morgan. I didn't know Nick at the time. And I said, it's a big investment to come to Contractor Coalition. You just shared the story about these people that were in debt, but still found the investment. And then, 12 months later, 14 months later, they're profitable. And Morgan she had talked to you. I didn't realize this till later. And he's like, no, tell her this. And so she delivered it like a pro. She said, you will make the investment back in the first session. And she was right. And I was running this morning with some of the attendees, and I told them that story. And I had mentioned that my net marginal profit from 2 years ago to today is double. And it's because I wasn't charging enough. I'm convinced that every builder in America is undercharging. We need to understand how to value our own work. And like you were telling that builder in California about, he was concerned about his competition, like they didn't want him to come here. But you say this all the time, a rising tide floats all boats. Like, our industry we are vastly undercharging for the work and the risk that we take. And you can have a great income and a great life, but we should be paid accordingly. And I feel like you guys do such a good job of really owning that message and helping all the attendees really understand, because I think the biggest critic is ourselves. Like, I can't charge a homeowner more if I don't believe in myself. Right. And you do an amazing job of empowering builders and owners to really own their story and charge accordingly.
Well, yeah, because it's not about inflating the market. The reality is, you hit on the head, it's so much risk. When you look how anyone watches Shark Tank and people come in and they want to invest and they're making 40% margin, 45% margin, and in some ways that's not even enough for some of these investors. You take a business which is much risk, that people can actually die on the job, and you could be sued because things fail or collapse, and and then warranty and things settle. I mean, you're dealing with natural elements. I mean, it is so much risk. And if you were to tell people you can invest in this business for 1, 2, 3% margin, like no one will do it. And it's a race to the bottom. And so the point is, most of us, what I've come to realize is, construction, my opinion is that construction has a bad rap because they say that they're dishonest. And I would push back, for sure, there's probably some contractors that are dishonest. What I've come to find, trade partners, GCs, is they're good people, but they're not good business owners. And they don't understand the financial side. They don't understand cash flow and WIP. And what ends up happening is, as they say, it says, a contractor's more likely to die from indigestion as opposed to starvation. And what I mean by that is you take on too much work because, you get the next one, you're worried about, it's more revenue and you can't perform. And you take deposits and you don't realize that, hey, I may have money in the bank, but that's not my money. They're just bad business owners, and they get to the point where they're just overextended. They can't perform, they can't fulfill. Supplier invoices come in, they're not charging enough, the margins are too tight, they underestimate timelines, so payroll's higher, labor's higher, and they fail. And now you have companies who go out of business, not because they're going and buying 10 boats or they're going to Vegas on the weekend, it's because they've overextended themselves and they don't understand how to run their business. And so the point is, the more we understand that, the better it'll be to be more efficient in this industry.
Mm-hmm. We've got 2 days left of the coalition. What most excites you about the next 2 days?
Well, this format's different. Today we kind of softened them today, where we're doing, take software, as you will, but, going through ideal client and marketing and AI and contracts and really how you're setting up your business, catering to those who may be younger in their firm and looking to excel. Tomorrow we're going to go heavy into, the financials and the client expectations and, the organizational chart and the SOP, things that some of which we have done, some we haven't. But today's kind of teeing them up for what's tomorrow, and the two together will really help them.
Yeah, awesome. Well, appreciate it. We'll see you in Chicago.
Thanks, Mark.
If you're interested in attending the Contractor Coalition in the future, please head to contractorcoalitionsummit.com or follow us on Instagram to find out more.